Hi, everybody. This is good old JR Jim Ross, and you're listening to another wrestling podcast.
It's time for another wrestling podcast.
Are you ready to beat the man? You have to beat the man. What you gonna do when Hulkamania destroys you? The kid you dig that sucker. Have a nice day. The champ is here.
With your hosts, Steve Credo and Jonathan Benjamin.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another wrestling podcast. I'm Jonathan Benjamin.
And I'm Steve Credo.
This is episode number 61, and we are on the road to where it all began for us, the New England Fan Fest. We would like to give a special shout out to a great friend of another wrestling podcast, Mr. Joseph Bruin.
That's right, Jonathan. He has put on a ton of hard work to make the Fan Fest fun and amazing for everybody. It's unlike any other place, Fan Fest or convention that you will go to, guys. I promise you that. If you haven't gotten your tickets yet, they're still available at newenglandfanfest.com, and I'm sure there will be some available that day, but don't guarantee it. Anything can happen, so hop online right now, newenglandfanfest.com. Buy your tickets, guys. Be smart about it, and don't miss this one hell of a show. That's right, Jonathan. I dropped the H-bomb tonight. One hell of a show.
Yeah, that's a little ridiculous. I would stop you, but you're absolutely right. And the Friday of New England Fan Fest, there'll be a dinner, a VIP dinner. Tickets are $100, but you'll get to eat with the likes of Jim Ross, Jim Cornette, Jimmy Crackcore. No, I was on a Jim thing there for a second. Maria Kanellis. The names are endless, and bring your appetite. You'll get to actually sit and eat with the wrestlers. And then after that, if that wasn't enough, live in New England, a Jim Cornette show will happen. Tickets are just $15 for that. And then on Saturday, go ahead.
No, I'm psyched. That's all I wanted to say. I can't wait, man. This is great.
Yeah, and then on Saturday, you'll get to see all the stars. You'll get to meet them, get pictures with them. There's bikini photo ops. We're going to be doing a live show there.
But we're not doing the bikini photo ops, Jonathan. Sorry, I can only do so much.
Speak for yourself. And then after the Fan Fest itself is the annual Hall of Fame ceremony. It's always a great time, and I can't wait to meet all of you guys there. So be sure to stop by, get your tickets now, don't wait, and come say hi to us at the New England Fan Fest.
That's right, Jonathan. And like you said, this is a full circle for us, Jonathan. 1 year ago is where we started another wrestling podcast. That's where it all began for us, and we love the New England wrestling, the New England Fan Fest. We love them so much for getting our feet wet, if you will, letting us hop aboard this little podcast train, and I can't say it enough, guys. This is where it all began for us, so it's going to be surreal to go back there 1 year later, and to see everything we accomplished in 1 year, to go back to where it all began, and start off year two with a bang.
Well, I can't really believe how far we have came in just 1 year, because if you told me that the guest on our show today was going to be our guest at all ever, I would have probably not believed you. So today's show really could be the biggest show we've ever had. On today's show, we'll be talking with the voice of the WWE. Actually, he's the voice of professional wrestling in general. WWE Hall of Famer Jim Ross will be here today.
But Jonathan, before we talk to the legend himself, Mr. Jim Ross, let's talk about other color commentators in the world of wrestling. I think what better theme can there be for today's show than commentators? That third man, if you will. We talked to interviewers, we talked about managers. Let's talk about the color commentary teams that have been on through all the decades of wrestling. They are, what we listen to as we watch our favorite wrestling programs. You know, they are, I guess, like the third man or the extra wheel, whatever you want to call them, but they definitely hold the show together with their commentary. And without them, you're just going to see guys running around the ring and have no idea what's going on, right?
Yeah, I was just getting ready to say, like, if you don't think the commentating's important, I implore you to go to any live show in the world and just like sit there, and there's an absence. You can see what's going on, but you want to hear what other people have to say, and that's why commentating is such an important art in the world of professional wrestling. So without further ado, I say that I'm going to start with one of the big dogs. I'm going to start with none other than Vincent Kennedy McMahon. What were your thoughts on his style of commentating throughout the years?
Jonathan, I always say it. I loved Vince McMahon as a commentator. Not so much as Mr. McMahon himself. I mean, granted, he was okay when he played the boss character, but before we knew he was the boss, he was the commentator. He was the color TV guy, you know. I loved his voice, man. He has a voice for TV. You know, he knew what he was talking about. It was his company. Little did we know as youngsters growing up before we knew all about Vince McMahon, you know. But what we saw was him on commentary. And, you know, he knew his product, which is great. You know, you kind of need to know your guys and all that stuff. So he knew what was going on. He knew what was he knew all the guys. And, you know, just his teaming up, I think, with the likes of like Jesse the Body Ventura was probably one of my all-time favorite color commentary teams. I have a few more of them, but I mean, McMahon himself, man, I wish he could just, you know, he doesn't like being in the spotlight today, but honestly, I would love to have him back on the color commentary team just to hear him talk. I mean, when Vince was talking, it was great wrestling, and you know, it was just entertaining to watch. I loved it. You know, it was like there's so many people in the world that have like the voiceover voice that you just love hearing, and Vince had one of those voices that I just always loved listening to while watching Raw or whatnot, you know?
Yeah, I love the story too, because his dad was the one that was in charge at the time, the WWF, and I think that somebody held him up for money and said that, you know, they weren't going to go out and commentate or interview unless they got paid, and so Vince Sr. just fired him and sent Vince McMahon Jr. out there and just said, well, have at it. And I'll always remember things that he did, like they said Andre the Giant would come out and Vince would have him stand on a box just so he looked even bigger, because Vince is a pretty big guy. So he had a mind for the business back then, but a lot of my like early memories of commentating and stuff came from two people. We'll talk about another one later, but yeah, Vince McMahon was one of them, and I think he was a great commentator. I really do.
Definitely. I mean, it's those times, though. You know what I mean? Like, I can go back in time to, like, not even talking about today, to where some of the guys today just can't even stand up to some of the legends of the commentary team. Vince McMahon was a big part of it, but also, like I mentioned earlier too, Jesse the Body Ventura. I don't know. He just, every time he spoke, it was gold. You know what I mean? I don't think you could give this guy a script and he could do it justice. It was just all on the spot. Natural reactions, natural responses, and he balanced out McMahon very well, to where McMahon was the serious. It didn't really crack jokes really as much, but you know, you had Jesse the Body Ventura as that, you know, the comic relief, if you will, especially from the costumes he wore at ringside. I don't know what the heck he was thinking some of the times, but hey, you got to do what you got to do, and I think Jesse Ventura, moving right down the line from my childhood, is, you know, that color commentary team from McMahon to Ventura was one of the superb teams of all time.
Yeah, Jesse put what I like to call the color in the color commentary. He was an amazing color commentator. He would talk, and he would always have like little barbs and like jabs that he would throw in there. And I remember the very first episode of Saturday Night's Main Event where Jesse and Vince, I think, rode out on horses. And it's just like those are the type of memories that you have that you can't ever forget, because Jesse was so colorful, and you know, Vince was always like the straight man, they called him. He would just call it down the middle, and if, you know, someone would cheat, he would be appalled, but Jesse would always like love that somebody was cheating. So that's what made them great. It was yin and yang.
That's right. And you know, I could talk talk on and on about these guys, but one of the best teams on the commentary side I think they ever had. But another one of my favorites, Jonathan, and we'll talk about his partner too, would have to be Gorilla Monsoon. Loved his voice. You know, he was a former wrestler. I don't know. It's just something about like these voices that, you know, you have to have like that voice that just people love to hear all the time. You know what I mean? That comforting, whether he sounded like a father figure or an uncle, you know, just like overall, you know, nice person pretty much. And you just loved hearing it. But on the other hand, on the other side of Gorilla Monsoon was one of my other also all-time favorite teams was Bobby the Brain Heenan. Now, Jonathan, what are your thoughts on Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby the Brain Heenan as a color commentary team?
By far the greatest team tandem of commentary ever. I think that the comedic timing for both of them, they played off of each other so well. Gorilla would say something, Bobby would say something right back at him, or the vice versa. And the famous thing that I always remember is just Gorilla Monsoon saying, like, "Will you stop?" Like, he would just get so, like, frustrated. And I think that was what was so great, that there wasn't really a script. You know, they knew what they had to do. They would go out there and they would talk about the match, but they also threw in some comedy. And I think that the two of them could have been a comedy team for movies. They could have been on television. They could have done it all. And, you know, it was just such a sad thing to see when Bobby Heenan got inducted to the Hall of Fame. Like, he just, you know, he was going through a lot of stuff at that time. And I remember him saying, "I just wish that Monsoon could be here to see this." And, like, it was just so powerful. And I cannot think of a better tandem. There's been some great duos, and I'm sure we'll talk about them, but by and large, for me, it's Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby Heenan every time.
That's right. Now, Jonathan, I mentioned, you know, Gorilla Monsoon was a wrestler. Do you think it helps if the commentator maybe was a wrestler in the past, or does one of the guys on the team need to be a wrestler, or what do you think about that?
You know, like we just mentioned, Gorilla Monsoon, Jerry the King Lawler, even guys like Vince McMahon who have been in the business for a long time. Some of people today have a different background. Maybe they were in the news or weathermen or sportscasters or whatever. But I really think that it helps to have been in the business prior to commentating. And I mean, we see like Macho Man Randy Savage, he did it for a little bit or whatever. But I definitely think that it helps because you're more familiar with the terminology. You're more familiar with the wrestlers themselves. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily a have to, but I think it definitely helps.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting because, I mean, I don't know if it's just that the wrestlers relate better to the wrestlers in the ring sometimes, that, you know, not necessarily that they have to name the moves and whatnot, but, you know, just kind of understanding the pacing of it, what they have to get across on the screen. Because, you know what I mean? Like you said earlier too, you know, if you go to a show and you don't hear that commentary team, it's just like you're missing something, you know what I mean? Like, you just wish you had a headset, you could plug it into your phone, and I'm telling you, if they come out with this idea, I want to be patented for it, because today everybody has a smartphone, Jonathan. Like, literally, as you go to a live event, somebody backstage, doesn't matter who it is, could be doing the commentary, you know. And then what do? You go on the app and you listen to the live commentary of the show, and you can listen to it on your headset, and that'd be awesome. Especially for me, maybe an older fan that loves it, you know what I mean. But maybe some of the kids wouldn't really care for it. But I don't know. Maybe since we're getting older in our age, we're not that old, but I mean, you know, we just been around the block more, I guess, with the wrestling and commentary, that we kind of just love hearing it all the time, and it really does make the show. But Jonathan, I mean, we talked about McMahon, Gorilla Monsoon, Jesse the Body Ventura, Bobby Heenan. There's been a whole bunch of different tandems of teams on the commentary. Have you had any favorites or any others that just stood out to you?
Well, I'm glad you said, like, stood out to you, because it wasn't necessarily my favorite at the time. But I remember after Jerry Lawler got, he didn't get fired. He quit after they fired his then wife, Miss Kitty, the cat, Stacey Carter. And they brought in Paul Heyman as his replacement. And I remember Paul Heyman and Jim Ross on the, you know, commentary together. And it felt a little forced at first, and it got a little awkward because I think Paul Heyman was just trying to be Paul Heyman, and instead of like being a part of the team. And so I remember there being a lot of kind of moments, maybe awkward moments where there was silence or whatever, because they weren't really gelling well, especially after Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler had been, a tandem for a really long time. But Paul Heyman's one of those guys that is great because he's got the knowledge for the business. He's been around it his whole life, not unlike Jim Cornette, who's going to be at the New England Fan Fest that you can come see. Or you can also go back and listen to the show that we had Jim Cornette on. I encourage you to go back and listen to all those. But those guys could talk on the mic, and they were invested. They were a part of the business. So I think it's very important. That's probably one of my biggest things is that you either have to be a fan, a lifetime fan, or you have to have been involved to be a effective commentator.
That's right. And speaking of effective commentators, Jonathan, I think let's get right into it because the man is here with us today. The legendary Jim Ross is joining us right now in the studio. What an honor to have this WWE Hall of Famer with us today. Today's show is truly unlike any other. It's an honor to have someone on the show today whose words were literally the soundtrack to our adolescence. He is a Hall of Famer, a podcaster, a barbecue saucer, and the single greatest announcer of all time. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jim Ross. Jim, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks, guys.
All right. Now, you're busier than ever after semi-retiring from the full-time grind of pro wrestling. Do you see what you're doing these days as work, or do you just enjoy getting to do all the things that you want to do?
Well, some days it gets to be a little bit work, but all in all, I'm doing projects that I really enjoy, and I'm at a stage of my life where I'm not going to probably do any projects that are going to be tedious or that just feel like a job. I've always had the belief that if you have something that you love to do, and it never feels like you are working. It's so I kind of espouse that philosophy. So I'm doing a lot of the projects that I do. I really have fun doing them. So they're not. It's not like going to work. So I'm enjoying all the things I'm doing right now.
Okay, now we have seen Stone Cold and Chris Jericho do their podcasts on the network. Do you think we'll ever get to see a live Ross report on the WWE network?
I have no idea. That's entirely a WWE call.
Okay.
I have no idea. I have no power over that, no influence over that, no control over it. It's completely out of my hands, and obviously I'd be interested if feeling was mutual, but I really don't have any idea.
Okay. All right. Now, speaking of your show, you've had on tons of talent, past and present. Who are some of the people that you haven't got a chance to speak with yet that you would look forward to seeing?
Oh gosh, that's hard to say. I've enjoyed everybody that I've had on. Everybody brings something unique to the table. If you have interview skills or if you have communication skills, one should be able to make any interview somewhat entertaining and informative. I've had some very unique guests. I look at my podcast as a way to reconnect with a lot of old friends. I enjoy the casual conversation. We don't get the hype and the promotion that a lot of other podcasts do, but our numbers are very good, and we've been very blessed with that. So, I got guys coming up that I haven't talked with. This week's interview with Bret Hart is outstanding because of his willingness to share. I've got a 2-part interview coming up with Mike Tenay that's especially good. That'll be coming up in a few weeks. So, Tori Wilson was surprisingly open and honest and very good. So, it's like someone saying, "What's your favorite match?" Well, I don't have a favorite match. It's not a good question. I've been doing it, 40 years. There's a lot of matches, and does one stand out above all the others? Absolutely not. So all these guests bring something to the table. And it's all on me because I'm the one that I produce the show. I write the show, and I invite the guests. So if I don't have a good guest, that's my fault. And if I don't have a good interview with them, then that's on me. So, but I've really enjoyed doing the podcast. It's a great creative outlet, and it's growing. We're averaging about 500,000 downloads a week. So on one show. And so I'm very, very pleased, and it continues to grow thanks to everybody's support. So, I don't have that television platform that some people do. Steve's got WWE supporting him, which is great. Jericho's got WWE supporting him via Tough Enough now, and then prior to that, his podcast. And I'm happy for both those guys. I hired both those guys. So I'm very proud, very pleased for them. But we're growing ours more of an old-fashioned way, more grassroots, word of mouth, and thus far that concept is working.
Now, you just mentioned that you're getting, millions of downloads. Were you surprised, I guess, to how popular your podcast became?
I had no idea how popular it would be, or if it would last a month, 6 weeks. I had never downloaded anything in my lifetime. I wasn't a podcast guy. I just seemed like I was staying very, very busy doing other things. So I had never had any experience in podcasting. My Steve Austin and I would talk about his, and I was on his show a couple of times in the early part of his run. He encouraged me to do it, and then my manager, Barry Bloom, also represented Jericho in his negotiations with Podcast One. So he wanted me to. Podcast One wanted me to come on. So through the efforts of Barry and Steve, I acquiesced and said, "Okay, I'll give it a shot." But I didn't know what to expect. I had no expectations whatsoever how good it would do or not. So it's been a very pleasant surprise, and now I'm all in. I really enjoy it, and I look forward to every opportunity to talk to someone new. And I'm not having any issues getting guests. I've got people calling us now wanting to get in the show, and so it's good. It's good, and I found it's a way to reconnect. I hadn't talked to Tori Wilson since she left WWE, for example. And, I never publicly on any forum talked to Mike Tenay. Mike and I have been friends for a long time, but we've never been on a radio show together or anything like that. So that was good. I hadn't talked to Brett since while I was still announcing for WWE in one of his return visits. So it's it serves a lot of good for me personally, and then and hopefully it's entertaining to the listener.
No, it's a great podcast, and it's nice to hear. You're so immersed in the world of professional wrestling, but in your interviews, it doesn't sound like that. It just flows like a conversation. So you're doing great so far, and we definitely enjoy listening to it. But as someone who's an authority on the world of professional wrestling, we have so much wrestling these days. WWE, Impact Wrestling, Ring of Honor, there's a little bit of everything, Lucha Underground, and it's on pretty much every night of the week. Do you think that there's too much wrestling these days?
Well, that'll really be decided by the fans and the viewers. I don't watch every show live. by any stretch of the imagination. I don't have the time nor the inclination to watch every wrestling show live. I'm just too busy, and I got too many projects I'm going on. I have a life and things that I'm obligated to do, and so. But I DVR a lot of product, and I watch a lot. I watch more wrestling on DVR than I do live by any stretch of the imagination. So there's an awful lot of wrestling on, and the good stuff will stick around, and the stuff that's inconsistent or poorly produced or poorly executed will fall by the wayside. So it's the old law of the jungle thing. The strong survive. So if you get ratings and numbers, you stick around. If you don't, you're gone. And but there's an awful lot of product on. I look at it. You can look at it glass half full or half empty.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot better than having hardly anything on television. It's a lot better than having very little product on and the product dying. The product's trying to make a resurgence, and in a lot of areas, WWE is always going to be the alpha male. They're the big dog in the yard, and nobody's ever going to challenge them. All the other wrestling organizations combined will never make a dent in WWE's business.
Yeah.
But that's really not the point. The point is that all these companies just need to focus on their own brand, talk about their own brand, and grow their own brand. And if they do that, then they can hopefully find themselves in the profitable side of their operation instead of having financial issues. It seems like the only company other than WWE right now that's not having some sort of financial challenges is Ring of Honor.
Mm-hmm.
And they have strong ownership, and they have capital, and they're growing their brand very deliberately, very slowly and methodically, but they're doing some good things, and they're doing it in an organized, business-like, systematic way. Lucha Underground is looking for funding, and are they going to have a second season? I don't have any idea. I've heard stories yay and nay, and I've talked with them, and they need new funding, and they need to find a healthier television outlet. TNA's problems have been well documented. Are they going to stay? Are they going to go with the Destination America? I have no idea. I'm certainly of the mindset that I want them to succeed and be profitable. But they've got some house cleaning that they need to do, and they need to do some. They have to change the way they approach some of their business practices, in my view, that they may not agree with. That's fine. I'm not working for them, so
Yeah.
I'm expressing an opinion. So it's the same old deal. It's like any other TV show. If the ratings are there, they'll stick around. If the ratings aren't there, then they will fall by the wayside. But I'd rather have too much wrestling and then be able to choose,
Yes.
DVR, view, and choose, as opposed to having little or no content on television.
Okay. Now, you've obviously done nearly everything in the business, but from a talent scout standpoint, obviously we just saw that Samoa Joe is now on WWE NXT. Are there people that are still out there that you really enjoy seeing that you hope end up in WWE someday?
Oh gosh, I have to give that some serious thought, because I'm not one just to throw names out.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's fans do that all the time, and I'm not really real open with making talent recommendations. There are people that have a lot of potential. The Moose at Ring of Honor, you can't coach size and athleticism, and he has size and athleticism, good foot movement, coordination. But is he going to continue to develop the aptitude to be a great pro? I don't have any idea. I've never met him. I don't know his work habits. I don't know how dedicated he is to getting better at his craft. But certainly he's someone that you keep your eye on because, again, people like, whether some fans want to admit it or not, size does have a factor in the equation. And not to say that smaller guys can't get over, not to say smaller guys can't draw money. I'm not saying that whatsoever. But when you get a guy that's his size, with his athletic background, you can't discount that. So he would be one guy just off the top of my head that if he can dedicate himself and continue to get really understand the business of why he does what he does and work on his nutrition and his look, continue to work and improve on all areas, he's got a chance to be very, very good. So that's something there. There's the kid that works Ricochet. I like. He had a WWE tryout at the time. It just wasn't in the cards for him at that point in time. But a lot of people don't understand. They just look at today's guy and say, well, they had a chance of signing. They didn't do it. How stupid can you be? Well, that was then.
Yeah.
He may not have been as good then as he is today. And people that are nearsighted or after the 8th grade don't get that. So I like his work, and his work in New Japan has been outstanding, and his work on Lucha Underground has been really good too. So he's another kid that I like. That I think has a good aptitude, high flyer. So he and Moose are both different breeds of cat, but they both can contribute if they dedicate themselves to getting better every time out.
Mm-hmm. Now, Jim, you have a lot of going on right now, but coming up pretty close in the Northeast, you have some bigger things coming up. The New England Fan Fest. We have a VIP dinner June 26th starting at 6 p.m. at the Rhode Island Convention Center. I haven't seen a menu yet, but I'm hoping that some of your famous barbecue makes it on there. What's JR's products will you be bringing to the Fan Fest? You guys going to be bringing a lot of your barbecue sauces to sell for the fans?
Well, that's going to be really up to the promoters. They've indicated that. They've indicated they want to bring they want to have some product there. So I'm very hopeful that we have a good supply of sauces and ketchup and mustard and so forth. So because it would be really convenient to cash and carry and not worry about shipping and handling and delivery and all those things. So that's kind of up to the promotion, but they have indicated that they want to have plenty of product on hand, and we're certainly willing to help them make that happen. So I'm with you. I think the fans would enjoy the opportunity to buy it on site and take it home with them. So and you never know. I don't know. Maybe they'll have the ketchup at the tables or mustard, or I don't know what the menu is either. But it should be a lot of fun. There's a lot of interesting personalities going to be there on Friday night, and I've never done a function exactly like that before, so it should be interesting and fun. So I hope hope ticket sales are going well for that, and it's a very unique opportunity for the fans to interact with a lot of people that they've seen on TV in a unique environment, as opposed to standing in a line and waiting to go through and get something signed or a picture or photo op or whatever. So it's going to be a fun couple of days there. I don't do a lot of these fan fests. I do schedules and quite frankly, sometimes the management of these events are not very stellar, and I don't really care to get involved into the car wrecks, so to speak, of those functions. I think sometimes it gives wrestling a bad name, and we get enough bad marks on us anyway. So, but these guys there in Rhode Island just come so highly recommended, and friends of mine that have been and speaking so highly of Joe and his crew, and so I'm happy to. I'm looking forward to it. Quite frankly,
Great, yeah.
I'm going to be. I just get back from the UK on. I get back on Tuesday. Then I'm home a couple of days, and I head to Rhode Island. So it's a rare opportunity for me to do something like this. I'm looking forward to it because it is organized and it is different. It is a classy affair.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not slipshod thrown together. Card tables, and I always envision some of these fan fests like that scene from The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke sitting at that empty
Yeah.
card table, and I swear I'll never ever be involved in that type of environment. So this is so far from that; it's not even worth the comparison. So it's a rare opportunity, and I'm excited about it. I haven't been. Gosh,
Sure.
I haven't been in that part of the country since my WWE days, and even then we didn't play. Providence would play maybe twice a year or something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it should be fun, and I hope that we have plenty of product there. And again, that's going to be a decision that the promoters are going to make, but they have indicated they want to sell some of our stuff. So I'm very happy to hear that news.
Great. And then also the night before SummerSlam, you'll be performing your one-man show live at the Gramercy Theater. For people who have never been to one of your shows, what could they expect?
Well, I've actually got two shows that week. I've got a show on Wednesday in Washington, D.C. at the D.C. Improv on Wednesday night, August 19th. And then I'm coming up to New York, and I'm doing my show, as you mentioned, at the Gramercy Theater the Saturday night before SummerSlam. And I do about 20 or 30 minutes as a rule, unless I get really long-winded on a roll, telling stories and kind of setting the stage for the night. And then we go into a 90-minute or so unfiltered, no restrictions, uncensored, no holds barred Q&A. Because the Q&As are really the lifeblood of these shows. The fans are so entertaining, and a lot of them have really great questions. They thought it through. They've got things on their mind, and so I don't restrict any questions or any topics. And that's the fun part of the show for me because it's unpredictable. It makes every show that I do different. So a lot of road stories, a lot of humor, hopefully some motivational things. My career has been sort of a lesson in motivation, not giving up and overcoming some hands that one gets dealt in their life. No different than anybody else in life. We all got some days are better than others, and you have the choice to see how you survive them and how you get through them. So it's a fun show. It's a different side of me than people have seen on television as a straight man for a guy like Jerry Lawler or Paul Heyman or Jim Cornette or any of my partners I've had. A lot of great guys, and so I'm really working diligently to become proficient at this craft. So the challenge of being a performer and being competitive in general, I pushed myself to really have fun, and so I think the shows are going to be, they're going to be fun. The tickets for DC are at the DCimprov.com and the box office there in Washington D.C. on that SummerSlam week, and then of course in New York City, tickets are on sale at Ticketmaster and also the Gramercy Theater box office. Doing one show each night. We have a VIP meet and greet ticket that's available, and we do those early before the show, and I meet the VIP ticket holders and personalize their autographs and sign their memorabilia that they bring, and take pictures with them and chat with them a little bit, and it's fun. Kind of get a feel for the audience when we do that before the show. and then we go do our show, and then get back to the Q&A. So it's a good full 2-hour show, and it's a little longer than that if you're a VIP member because you're there a little earlier to do the meet and greet and all that stuff. So I'm having a blast doing them. I've it's just something I don't want to say I stumbled onto, but it's something that it kind of discovered me, and I didn't know if I could do them or not. So we did 4 shows in the UK a couple of years ago, and I really had fun. And we had great business, and we play smaller venues. 300, 500 people. They're intimate. It's personal. It's a fun show. So it's a good deal. I hope it'll be a part of everybody's SummerSlam weekend. SummerSlam the next day at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, and then my show that Saturday night before in New York at the Gramercy. So big weekend, and SummerSlam should be a real significant event because you won't think that'll be a Brock Lesnar pay-per-view, and those are always seemingly have a little bit more juice to them than the others.
Absolutely. Now, for fans listening today and they want to know about anything that we talked about today, whether it be Jim Ross's barbecue sauce, the podcast, the Ross Report, where you're going to be, where can fans find out about that?
Well, I generally update my blogs a few times a week at my website, which is probably one of the better kept secrets. I say that tongue in cheek. I have 1.3 million Twitter followers, but I don't know that the website business is. I don't know if it's too restrictive or what, but we get a tremendous amount of traffic on Twitter at JRSBBQ. So I'm generally active on that, and I try to keep everybody posting what's going on. But my website has blogs, has Q&As. The fans can submit questions there. And, of course, our products in the States, we're working on some grocery store deals. That's a lot easier said than done to get on shelf space with the big guys. But they can certainly get it very easily and have it delivered right to their front door through www.shop.com. A lot of real good packages that they put together, and they sell everything that we make, and their customer service is very good. They really have a very proficient and efficient online store. So www.shop.com. I have a page on there, and as I tell people, it doesn't cost you a thing to look.
Absolutely.
And you look and see if you see something you like, you want to try. It's one of the packages. They make great Father's Day gifts. There's some packages that really are conducive to a first-time buyer. A lot of packages are on there they're under $20. So it's affordable. The products are family recipes. They're not gimmicks. So www.shop.com is a place there. But I guess either my website, jrsbarbecue.com, or Twitter at jrsbbq should kind of cover all the bases for the things that we're doing and the projects we've got coming up. And a lot of projects are coming up. We got, I'm going to England in June to the first ever London WrestleCon, excuse me.
Okay.
And that's with a guy promoter that I've worked with before that I know does good work and is organized and runs a classy operation, and I know there's a lot of Hall of Fame talent going to be there. Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart, and Trish, Lita, Ron Simmons, Howard Finkel, I think, is going to be booked there. Justin Roberts, they may have a match. Howard and Justin, they battle of the former ring announcers, and myself and several others. So that's really doing well. Then on Monday night, the 22nd of June, I'm going to be in Manchester, England, with Shawn Michaels. We're going to do a little 2-man tag team show. That's first, and tickets are going really good for that. It may be sold out by now, I'm not sure. So, but things are good. I'm staying busy, and then come back and in the very, very busy month of June in Rhode Island. And the thing that a lot of fans don't understand is that we that are in the business are very privileged to have been in it. Many of us are still just as big a fans today as we were before we started getting a paycheck. So when I can go to a place like Providence and I can see so many of my old friends, it's a real celebration for all of us, because you guys that are young, and I was the same way. Sometimes we take our mortality for granted.
Mm-hmm.
And I say on my podcast, our tomorrows are never guaranteed. I truly believe that. And so every opportunity that I get to interact with my former colleagues, my peers, and the fans that have supported us, those are blessings. Those are great days. So I expect the 2 days in Rhode Island to be absolutely great, just on all phases. So hopefully, and I'm looking at the lineup. You guys know the lineup of talents are going to be there. I mean, it's a who's who.
Yeah.
I could look at that list. I could do a podcast for the next year. Just on the people are going to be at that show and have some interesting conversations.
Absolutely.
So it's going to be fun. So I encourage everybody to check it out, and it's family friendly, good for the dad and son day, or family time. The families wrestling fans. It's affordable, and it's very family oriented, as I mentioned. So I hope it does. Hope they have great success, and we're going to do all we can on our end to make that happen. So it should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it a great deal.
Well, I'm going to say one more thing that you did not mention, and I'm pretty sure that you have a Pro Wrestling Tees site as well, correct?
Yeah, we do. We have, like a lot of guys, that are kind of out there in the independent scene that aren't tied to a company. ProWrestlingTees.com/Jim Ross has several styles of T-shirts, and that's growing. That's another one of the projects that kind of pleasantly surprised me when I was approached to do a T-shirt store by those guys in Chicago, Ryan Barkin and his group. They do a great job, and they ship anywhere in the world, and sizes up to 5X and all that good stuff. So we've got, I don't know, probably a dozen different designs, and I got a tweet the other day from a guy that had a Slobber Knocker T-shirt on that he was wearing while he was in Sweden on vacation, or Switzerland. Maybe Switzerland. He was on vacation. So it's fun to get the tweets of the guys wearing your stuff, and the Slobber Knocker shirt, or tougher than a $2 steak, and all those whole business is about to pick up and things like that. All those whole cliches I utilized back in the day. We, in some shape, form, or fashion, we put them on shirts, and they're doing really well. So I'm very grateful to the folks that keep supporting us in that regard. So it's kind of a fun thing. Thanks for reminding me of that. I had there's a lot of things on the table. So, and it's a good day. I'm putting together. I'm going to tape a podcast tonight, Monday night, the open and close, so I can talk about the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view.
Absolutely.
So that'll be up, and I have my podcast drops every Tuesday night at 9 o'clock Eastern. A new show every Tuesday night at 9 o'clock Eastern, and it will air until the next one drops on Tuesday night at 9 o'clock Eastern. So tonight this week is going to be Bret Hart and my thoughts on the Elimination Chamber. Next week's going to be a very eclectic show, in as much as I'm interviewing Kimbo Slice, who's going to be fighting Ken Shamrock on Spike TV, and then the other part of the show is going to be Jim Cornette, and we're going to talk about the Charlotte Mid-Atlantic Legends Fan Fest that runs late July, early August weekend, that first weekend in August. And we're working on a movie documentary, Mid-Atlantic Memories. So I'm going to be a part of that production. And so Cornette and I are going to talk about Mid-Atlantic a little bit and whatever else pops into our mind. That's one show when you have Cornette on. He's one of my most popular guests. He gets as many downloads as any star, quote unquote. He's a star, but anybody on I've ever had. And you don't have to write any script. You just go. And so I got some really good podcasts coming up that I'm really excited about. And so it's all been fun. It's a fun stuff. So when you're lucky enough and healthy enough to be able to do projects that you really like and you enjoy being around the fans and giving back and saying thank you for all the support, it's a win-win for everybody. So I'm blessed to be able to have the opportunity to do those things.
Well, we want to definitely thank you for coming on today, and also we want to thank you for all of your contributions to the business. We will be seeing you live at the New England Fan Fest. We're going to be taping a show there as well. We just wish nothing but the best for you, and just thank you again for coming on today.
Thanks, guys. Life is good, and I wish you the best on your podcast, and keep up the good work, and I look forward to seeing you in Providence.
Once again, I just have to say thank you so much, Mr. Ross, for coming on the show today. We look forward to all the things that you have going on, and I for one want to hear him back in the WWE someday. I think that's where I find that he is most welcome, I guess, and people like that commentary the most from him coming from the WWE. But good luck to Jim Ross and everything he does, and we look forward to seeing him at the Fan Fest.
Yeah, Jonathan. Now, speaking of, like you said, Jim Ross has left the WWE. He's not doing commentary anymore. I loved he just had that voice too, man. He knew the moves. He knew the history, which is important. He knew he had. It's one of those things, man. You have a gift for something. When you have it, Jim Ross has it. He's always had it. And it's been so enjoyable to listen to him through the years, and it's just like one of those things to where, why reinvent the wheel? You have him that's working perfectly. Why get rid of him? And that's one of the things I just scratch my head at, to where he was perfect. Why would you just let him go? And now, Jonathan, today though, I mean, what do you think about some of the commentators who have come and gone since Jim Ross, who are doing it even today? Do they fit in the boots of Jim Ross? Because I personally I don't know. I haven't really been enjoying the color commentary. The only person I kind of like is JBL. He has some witty remarks, but he's like for the heels and whatnot still. But other than that, man, I don't know. I just miss Jim Ross. Like Michael Cole. No offense to Michael Cole, but he is no Jim Ross to me. And I don't know. What are your thoughts on like today's day and age of post Ross era? I don't know.
Well, I think that Michael Cole, let me just tell you this. Whenever you look back during the Attitude Era and you look at the crap that they put Michael Cole through, they, were giving him wedgies and wet willies and getting him soaking wet in the shower and all those things. I think that Michael Cole has come a very long way. And times like whenever Jerry Lawler had his heart attack and Michael Cole continued on, and he's a former news anchor or news correspondent. He probably could have done that for his entire life and been fine, but he came to the WWE, and in the beginning he was kind of it almost felt like a little bit out of place, but he's paid his dues, and his style is definitely different than Jim Ross, but I got to give credit where credit's due. I think that Michael Cole is definitely becoming one of the better commentators that there is.
I don't know, yeah, I mean, I'm 50-50 with him on sometimes. Some days I like him. I hated his whole heel gimmick. It was funny, don't get me wrong. It was funny when he had his little, his own little box and whatnot, but then there was just times to where it's I'm just sick of it. I just want to hear that Jim Ross feeling calling a match. Not making it a joke, not making fun of people. Just call the match, man. Just say the moves, tell me some history, and get to it. And I mean, I don't know. Cole never really did it for me. But for some guy that I will tell you who did do it, and another shame that they let go of him, was Matt Stryker. Another guy that was just great on the commentary. He knows the history, he knows the moves, he knows what to call, and it's just, I don't know. He's another guy that I thought was great. Could have filled Ross's shoes if he just stayed on for years to come, but I don't know, man. They let him go. Again, they keep losing these guys that were just really good and golden on the commentary team, and I don't know. I just scratch my head sometimes when they get rid of these guys.
Well, I think that Stryker's going to be fine as well. He's going around to a lot of companies. He was part of Wrestle Kingdom. He actually called it with Jim Ross, which is awesome. So, we talked to Matt Stryker a little bit at last New England Fan Fest, and we talked to him about that. And, I think that that's the kind of style that fans like us want, because he's talking to us, not necessarily at us. He is a fan, and it comes through in this commentary. And so those are some of the things that I think it takes to make a great color commentator. Steve, are there any qualities that you can think of that you would say, like, if you have to make the perfect color commentator, you would take two parts of this and one part of that? Like, what makes a great color commentator?
Well, I'll tell you what makes a great color commentator, you have to split it into two people. You need the one guy who knows the history, knows the moves, and just, knows how to call what happens in the ring. And then the other guy has to be, the comic relief. I'm not saying to make fun of everybody, but just, what I mean? The Jerry Lawler, the Jesse the Body Ventura. JBL kind of has it a little bit, but not as great as Lawler or I don't think Jesse Ventura, or like the Bobby the Brain Heenan kind of thing. Like you need that duo. You know what I mean? So you need the serious guy and the history guy, then you need that comic relief guy, and put those two together. That's what makes a color commentary team perfect. And if you just had just one of those and you couldn't pick both of them, I would stick with the guy with the history and then the knowledge of everything that's happening in the ring, from the wrestlers to, little stupid facts that will come out of, like, hey, did you know that so-and-so is the longest reigning champion? Or, hey, do you know the last time they defended this belt on what? You know what I mean? Like little stupid facts that they just bring up, and it just adds to the show, you know what I mean? To where it's a big part that's missing today. Granted, they kind of have it here and there, but the pieces aren't in 100% place, if you know what I mean. But what would you say, though? Because, I mean, did I nail it? Did I get it right? Or is there something else that you would think that would make a great color commentator?
No, I think that some of the things that are very important to me in a color commentator is somebody who is funny. I think that is good. So, like, whether it be Booker T yelling "Shucky Ducky Quack Quack," which I'm still not for sure what that means, but or JBL, whenever somebody blatantly breaks a rule and he's like, "Oh, I didn't see anything," or Jerry Lawler yelling at puppies. But also, your Matt Strykers, your Michael Coles, those are the people that are going to tell you, like, why you're watching what you're watching. There's a feud like Kevin Owens and John Cena. Like, tell me about why this is happening. Tell me about Kevin Owens. Tell me about John Cena. And so, comedy for me is big. Also, the knowledge base. The history of whatever is going on in the ring as well. And somebody they have to have a. I really do think it's important. For me, it would be very important for somebody to have somewhat of a background in wrestling, whether it be actually wrestling, a manager, just a lifetime fan. That, to me, is one of the most important parts of a great color commentator.
All right. Well, I guess you guys heard kind of what I gave and what Jonathan gave, but once again, we stress it enough. Guys, Facebook.com /Another Wrestling Podcast. Go to Twitter, search A Wrestling POD, tweet us, Facebook us, let us know maybe who you really loved or who you hate or whatnot. Guys, always a great turn to tell us. To tell us what you feel. And guys, if you don't want to tweet us, you don't want to Facebook us, Jonathan, one big part of the show where we have left off today, but we want to get everybody used to it, is the AWP hotline. So if you don't want to tweet us, you don't want to Facebook us, you want to pick up a phone just like good old days and leave your voice message, guys, now's your chance. 1-802-297-7672. That's right, 802-AWP. 7672. Guys, call us, call the AWP hotline, leave a message. Tell us what you thought about this show, and maybe who you really loved as a commentator. That's what we want, right, Jonathan? We want to hear from everybody.
Yeah, and Steve, I'm asking you this right now because we just recently saw Jerry Lawler move over to SmackDown for commentating. Did you like that move? Are you kind of sad that he's not on Raw anymore? And what are your thoughts on some of the new people that are coming up through the ranks to be on commentary?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things to where, like I said earlier, it's one of those things to where you don't have to reinvent the wheel. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know, just because some of these guys are getting older doesn't mean they can't do it like they still, do it like we want to do it. You know what I mean? Call it like we want to hear it. I think, for Jerry Lawler, unfortunately with him, I think his health was probably a big problem to where, granted Raw is like the live show, so maybe it was just a backstage move to where if something happens again, they don't want it happening on live TV. I'm going to cross my fingers, whatnot. I don't want it to happen, but I think it's a kind of move like that to where Lawler, as great as he is, I think it's just a move to kind of, to where he doesn't have to worry about the stress of live TV and whatnot. But I mean, I think it's a bad move. I think, Jerry Lawler is the A show, should be on the A show, and, he is missed because I definitely love hearing from him all the time. But as far as the new guys, like Byron Saxton, Corey Graves calling it on NXT, even the pre-show and whatnot. A lot of these guys are great. They still need some work, but I don't know. I'm still an old school guy, Jonathan. I mean, I'm not behind any of them yet. You know what I mean? To where I need to hear him a lot more before I become happy with him. And I'm set my ways. You know what I mean? I gotta go for the old school guys, and I don't know. I guess times are changing though, and I guess you gotta get used to some new blood, right?
Yeah, and with these new guys, I think it's great because they're kind of coming up through NXT. Byron Saxton was wrestling for a while, didn't make it, and so now he is, commentating. Same thing with Alex Riley. Alex Riley was wrestling, then they had him on commentary, then he was wrestling for a while, and then maybe he'll come back. But I think it's great that these guys get a second chance. We all saw the ESPN 30 special with Corey Graves where he was a wrestler and he got injured, and, his career was uncertain. And so they gave him a shot at commentary, and you know what? It's sink or swim for him, and I think he's doing great. He gets to commentate down at NXT, but then now he gets to be on, the pre-shows before Raw or the pay-per-views or whatever. So good for him. I wasn't a big fan of his in-ring style, but I was, I am. His commentary is growing on me. So I look forward to seeing what things he can do, and I also look forward to seeing some of the other people. One person that is kind of just a chameleon and does a little bit of everything is Renee Young, and I think that she is by far the WWE's greatest asset and secret weapon. She can do anything.
Jonathan, now that you said that, I'm thinking in my head. I'm not going to go to Google, and I'm trying to really use my brain on this one, but there really hasn't been a woman commentator, has there? Like a mainstay person, not just somebody coming in for like a minute or somebody commentating on a match, but like there hasn't been a full-time like woman to call a match, really? Really? No. Wow. Do you think now with Renee Young, I mean, do you think she's doing the backstage kind of thing right now, but do you think that could be her job one day where she lands that full commentator gig?
I hope so, and I hope within the next couple of years that they move her out there on commentary. I don't know who the best partners would be for her, but I think that Renee Young is proven herself. She was a big fan. She got in there, and, she's been doing absolutely amazing, and I think that nothing would be better than to hear her call a pay-per-view live. And I would throw her in the deep waters. I would say throw her right into at WrestleMania.
Wow. She does not bother me. I think they've, I think a lot of people, I think even ESPN was reaching out to her to try to steal her away from WWE. She's that good. I think it's about time, Jonathan. I think we need to get a woman commentator in that position for good, and maybe we could start that movement. I don't know.
So we've talked a lot about commentators today. We talked about a bunch of different ones. We've left some out, but that's the point. We want you to get involved. Tweet us at A Wrestling Pod. Facebook.com/Another Wrestling Podcast. Let us know who you think that we should have talked about, and maybe we will talk about in a future show. But right now, Steve, I'm going to ask you the question, the $10 million question. Who do you think the greatest wrestling commentator of all time is?
Of all time. Jonathan, I'm going to go with it. He was on the show today, buddy. Jim Ross, I think, is the greatest of all time. I mean, I have a list in front of me of commentators. I've read them. I know them. But at the end of the day, if I'm on my grave, I'm saying my last few words, and you're asking me on my deathbed, I'm like, Jim Ross. You know what I mean? Like, that's it. There's nobody better, I think, than Jim Ross.
Yeah, you know what? I totally... I understand where you're coming from. I had a very different childhood and upbringing. I'm from the Midwest. I've said it pretty much every show. But one of my favorites, if not my favorite of all time, is Lance Russell. I highly suggest that anybody who doesn't know who Lance Russell is to YouTube some of his, calls that he made. He was heavy in Memphis. He was in WCW for a while, NWA. But where I got to know him the most was in USWA, and he was calling matches with Jerry Lawler and Andy Kaufman. He was calling matches with Brian Christopher and JC Ice. He was calling matches with Flex Cavana, who would later be The Rock. So my childhood is littered with Lance Russell commentary as well as Jim Ross. So it's a tough decision, but I'm going to say that for me, the greatest wrestling commentator of all time is Lance Russell.
Well, guys, there you go. I mean, let us know who you think is the greatest commentator ever. We said it 20 times during the show, Jonathan, right? AnotherWrestlingPodcast.com. Tweet us, Facebook us, call the hotline, Marks, and let us know. We want to hear from you, and we want to know what you think the greatest commentator is, or just anything about the show, what you loved, what you hated. Ask Jonathan a question. I don't know. Ask me something, whatever you guys want. Let us know. We want to hear from you guys, right, Jonathan? What a show. From commentators to Jim Ross. Jonathan, we're at the New England Pro Wrestling Fan Fest Hall of Fame this weekend. We're at the New England Fan Fest 5. It's going to be an exciting time for us. 1 year, we've come full circle, is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, we have, and it's only bigger and brighter things for us in the future. We're going to just keep doing the show. We love doing this for you guys. We love doing it for us. Let us know what we can be doing better. Let us know who you'd like to hear on the show. And be sure to tune in live. We will be doing a live show for the New England Fan Fest. You never know who's going to stop by. And if you're there in person, come up to us, say hi, tell us what your favorite show has been so far. We look forward to meeting all of you live at the New England Fan Fest.
That's right, Jonathan. Guys, next week, 4th of July week, Jonathan, we have a little big show. We have a nice patriotic show, if you will. Del Wilkes, the Patriot, is going to be joining us on that show. Jonathan, are you excited for the 4th of July? We're almost there.
I am absolutely excited. I've already bought the fireworks, gonna get the grill going. Nothing more patriotic than watching professional wrestling. Maybe I'll throw on a Great American Bash, who knows? But we also will be starting something that we haven't done before. It's called the Independent Spotlight. It's letting you get to know some of the world's best independent wrestlers that you may have never heard of before. So we will also have, joining us live, Dick Justice, professional wrestler, will be joining us live on that show. So it's one not to miss, ladies and gentlemen.
Community calendar.
And coming up on July 18th from 12 to 2 p.m., Tito Santana will be in Beacon, New York at Tito Santana's Taqueria. No relation. But, guys, head on over to tacosantana.com. Head on over to anotherwrestlingpodcast.com. Find out more information how you can meet and greet Tito Santana and get a free taco.
That's right, Steve. And we're also going to be at Northeast Wrestling's Wrestling Under the Stars for August 1st, 2015 in Fishkill, New York. You'll get to see such legends as Ric Flair, Mickey James, Alberto El Patron, Rey Mysterio Jr., the Young Bucks, Jerry the King Lawler, NXT's own Samoa Joe, Northeast Wrestling Champion Matt Taven,
Brian Anthony, the genius Lanny Poffo, and much, much more.
So make sure you subscribe to us and don't miss a show. It's easy, guys. Head on over, like Jonathan said, anotherwrestlingpodcast.com. Click on all the buttons on the top, all the links from iTunes to Stitcher to Player FM to TuneIn. We're out there. Like us, follow us, and subscribe to us. And Jonathan, if you're looking for some clothes to wear and you don't really have anything to wear for a night out on the town, and maybe you're going to a wrestling show and you just need a new shirt, well, head on over to ProWrestlingTees.com/anotherwrestlingpodcast. Pick up some original AWP shirts.
We want to thank all of our fans and listeners out there, so tune in next week for
Another Wrestling Podcast.